Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Sunday Brunch. Yes, it's back. We're back. This is our first show in 2 weeks. 2 weeks, because I had been away at in the United Kingdom, staying with Russ for 2 weeks, and the time shifted. And also with Star Wars Celebration, I could not do Sunday Brunch, but it is back. Sunday Brunch is back, so I'm glad to be here. Hello, Russ. How are you?
Hello. I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing well. So good to see you here on Sunday Brunch, Russ. And of course, this morning we have Tom Jr. Jackson. Hey, Tom Jr. Jackson, how are you this morning? Um, we also have Mario Lopez here.
Mario, hey man.
Mario, hope you are well. Good to see you. Who else is here today? We got Retro Nerd
Retro's
Girl.
here.
How are you, Retro
Everybody's
Nerd Girl?
favorite.
Yes, hope you are well, Retro Nerd Girl. Good to see you. Hope you are doing well. And guys, do remember to check out Russ's Amazon page for his Gladiatrix books, which are available now, guys. Also, check out Retro Nerd Girl's YouTube channel when you get a chance. And we also have Bonzo Kilborn here.
Hey Bonzo.
Bonzo says, "What's cracking, party people?" Um,
It's 3:30 on a Sunday afternoon. I'm not partying that hard just yet, Bonzo. I know my reputation precedes me, but really, no drinking for Russ last night either. Actually fell asleep on the couch after the boxing, but
Oh my gosh, I hope the boxing was good. Was it the outcome you expected?
there were some great fights last night actually, but I haven't watched the American one yet. But I watched the British one. And yeah, there was a Welsh guy, I think of Portuguese descent, Mario, like Cordina was his surname. But anyway, he won his title back, which was nice. Yeah, no, it was a good show. It was a good show. There was some decent fights.
It sounds amazing. And we also have Darth Plato with us saying, "I need my brunch
We're back,
fix."
man. We're back,
We are back, Darth Plato. Good to see you. Hope
and we will be discussing something that you probably want to pitch in about later on. So, albeit briefly, um, but
abs-
yeah, be interested to hear your view.
absolutely. And we also have Joe Tyson with us.
Big Joe, hey man, good to see you.
Joe says, "Greetings, Arden and Russ." Well, greetings to you, Joe Tyson. Such a pleasure to see you here this morning. We also have Norwegian Kryptonium. Hello.
How's it, Skull?
I hope you are well, Norwegian Kryptonian. Always a pleasure to see you here. Thalia Meyer is here. Good morning.
Hey,
Hello, good
Thalia.
morning, everyone.
God, it's like the
Um,
first day back at school, everybody coming back, right?
it is, Russ. It is. It certainly does feel that way. It feels like we were on spring break or something
Mm,
like that,
mm,
right?
mm, mm.
And I guess in a sense we were. We certainly were. Um, Bonzo has a question saying, "Russ, cheers, mate. Rumor has it you met Dedra Miro. Have you come back to Earth yet?"
Yeah, well, the question is, has she, after meeting me, that's the big question. No, that was an awesome experience because I got to sort of chat with her about something that had been on my mind for a while, and to hear her explanation of it, I guess, which we'll get onto. I imagine Aaron wants to talk a little bit about. Do you want to talk about what you did at Celebration and so on?
Yeah, we are
Yeah.
going to talk about it. We're going to touch on that. Maybe we could start off with that as soon as we finish saying hello to everybody. We are going to touch on that, Bonzo Kilborn, and certainly it's going to be it's very interesting, and we really just have had such a great time at Star Wars Celebration, Bonzo. So we are going to get to that. And hello, Gary Bando
Hey,
Sandwich
Gail.
Wellington. So good to see you. Says back to the regular no goofing off. Yes, no goofing off, Gary. We're not going to be able to get away with goofing off anymore. So here we are back in the Sunday brunch groove, if you will. Um, and yes, we're going to talk about that, Darth Plato. We are going to
That
talk
yeah, that was
about
it.
that coming up. We are. Also, Nathan, hello. Nathan says hello. What's up? Russ? Hello, Nathan. How are
Hey.
you, Nathan? Hope you are well. Just so glad to see you all here this morning. And yes, guys, as you know, I haven't been able to do Sunday brunch. Russ and I haven't been able to do Sunday brunch for 2 weeks because I was in the UK. I was at Star Wars Celebration. And then after that, I also went sightseeing. So I couldn't do Sunday brunch at our normally scheduled time. But right now, I am back in the US, in New York. We're here doing Sunday brunch. And we're going to talk about Star Wars Celebration because it was just so phenomenal this year. It was in the United Kingdom at the Excel Center. It was a 4-day long event. And of course, the usual things that you would expect at Celebration, which were the panels, all of the fans and the stars of practically every Star Wars franchise from the very beginning up to the very present. Everybody from live action voice actors, you name it, were all there, producers, directors, everybody. And there were a lot of things that went on. There were a lot of announcements that went on. Hello, Jamin D. Hope you are well this morning. There were a lot of announcements that happened there, Russ. Russ, you even went one day with me
I did.
on a Saturday, right?
Yeah, I've never been to a convention before, so I was interested to see what it was all about. But yes, there were announcements from, uh, of course, there was the big three announcements, wasn't there? There was the what's the guy who did Logan, the director? James Mangold, Star Wars movie. When they discover the Force, and then you have the Filoniverse closer, I imagine, or chapter closer that he's bringing together the Mandoverse and the Ahsokaverse and whatever verses he's doing. Book of Boba Fett, and they're doing that movie. And then, of course, there was the hey, the continuation of Ray Skywalker's Palpatine's story, um, which landed well at Celebration. Because shame they had Daisy Ridley there, and everybody had to cheer and so on and so forth. But it seems to be an announcement that nobody's particularly thrilled about. Um, and I was thinking about that in the sort of wider context of of not of doubling down on what the fandom perceives to be poor decisions. The majority of the fandom seems to be poor decisions. I mean, we've had this now with Star Wars. Still getting it with Marvel. I know that there's segments of fandom that call it the MCU, and it's too female oriented and it's too social justice orientated, and now they've had their problems with Jonathan Majors, of course, is the new big guy, and he's now in all sorts of trouble, which has thrown Marvel into turmoil. And then, of course, you've got Warner Brothers slash DC again doubling down on what are now at this moment in time perceived to be unpopular decisions and going in the wrong direction. Um, I personally can't work out the thinking behind the announcement of a Ray movie. It struck me a little bit like yeah, we're doing a new Superman, and I know you all love Henry Cavill, but I'm only keeping my bits of the Snyderverse and forget Henry. It's sort of like an announcement on that level when the fan base was thinking, oh, they're going to make an announcement, and the whole fan base is going to come back together for Star Wars about something we can all get excited for, and yet they've announced something that's going to keep the fan base split because look, there are people that loved those sequels. Uh, there, I would hazard in the fandom a bit of a minority, even from my straw poll of one, just chatting to people at Star Wars Celebration. Nobody seemed to be, yay! I can't wait. Although there were a lot of people there that just love Star Wars, like full stop. And I spoke to this German guy, and we were talking about the TV shows. This was in the line to me, Denise Goff, your Dead Ramiro, and he was talking. And I said, "What do you think of the TV shows?" And he said, "Oh, I really liked Obi-Wan." And I said, "You fucking what?" And he's like, "Yeah, I really loved it." And I was like, "But why?" And he was saying, "Well, it's just a chance to see them again, and the nostalgia, and the this and the that, and that's kind of like was pushing his buttons, right?" But I was saying, "But no," and it made no sense. Like, I'm going to chase him here. Oh, so you've come to kill me, and all the plot holes and silly things that we've talked about all the way through. But that to this guy just didn't matter. It was Star Wars, and he was happy to have new Star Wars. I don't know how much of the fan base occupies that space, but it's just interesting if you're a higher up at Disney and you're looking at your metrics and you're looking at your analytics, and you could see the Force Awakens sort of went up like that, and then Star Wars started to go down like that. So the third movie, the culmination of the trilogy, ends up making less than half of what the kickoff makes. So I can't understand our even just from a financial perspective. Forget about it being rubbish, and forget about it her being a Mary Sue, and let's not go there with all of that stuff. I just can't work out the thinking behind it. Why? What you know that this is unpopular with a lot of fans. You know that it lost money. It made money, but it lost half what your first film made. You have a chance, as James Gunn had a chance, to fix things, to literally just fix things and make things right. And you've decided, no, no, I know this upsets you, and hey, these are my toys, and I'm going to play with them the way I want. And if you don't like it, don't don't see my movie. Seems to be the attitude. What do you think, Aram? And what do you think, chat?
Yeah, it is kind of interesting because as you mentioned when you were online, when we were online, we were on the same line. Um uh and of course that other fan was talking about this different series he saw, and he mentioned some of them that he liked. And for the most part, I don't know how, I can only say that for the inner circle of what we know in YouTube, I can tell what fans may or may not have liked, and sometimes I can go by Rotten Tomatoes. But it seems like there are fans out there of some of these films and television shows. So the fans do exist, and some of them showed up to Star Wars Celebration dressed as some of these characters, especially Rey. We did see people dressed as Rey at Star Wars Celebration, Russ. There were a lot of cosplayers who were dressed as these characters. And, although I personally didn't care for the sequels, they weren't my favorite films. There are fans of them, and they're going to go forward with films, which I think they're going to make them. But, maybe a lot of people won't care for them. Who knows? But they're determined to make them. And, because of the reaction that people had in the last 3 films, I'm not that shocked by it, nor am I that impressed by it, because I can't be impressed by films that I thought were kind of poor. Many of us were disappointed in the prequels, and now we were disappointed in the sequel. So, it happens. Sometimes you see films and you don't care for them. But uh, since they're going to go ahead and try and retouch, let's say, on that Ray character, I'm just not. I didn't really spend too much time even thinking about it, because I wasn't really impressed with the first 3 films they made that she was in. So I'm a little skeptical that I'll be impressed with the next 3 or whatever they do. But honestly, they should have made her into like a television series, and that would have been better, but in my opinion. But
Well,
who knows
for
what's going
me,
to
it just
happen.
seems like now they're starting to acknowledge. And look, I'm not huge Star Wars. I said this to the guy in the line, and he just looking at me. I was like, I'm not hugely into it. Like my mates coming in, it's like I loved it when I was a kid, and I loved the prequels when they came out and all that sort of thing. But it's not something I can sit here and get really, really passionate about. Like if you like I would with DC, like you see me rant on about DC. But the one thing I do know is that you know a million voices suddenly cried out in terror and was suddenly silenced when Disney announced that they were not using the expanded universe, the Star Wars EU that had been going for some 20 or 30 years at this point. I think it was 20 years, Heir of the Empire and all those other great things that come out of it. No, we're not doing that. We're using our new thing. Except now we find out that they are now, especially Dave Filoni, is now starting to lean into a lot of that EU stuff with Grand Admiral Thrawn and all that sort of thing. And now we've got Ray coming along and setting up a Jedi Order and all of that. So basically, all the stuff Luke was supposed to do, but we don't like Luke. He's your hero, so we're not having that. We're having our hero do all the things that your hero was supposed to do, and you're going to have to get on board with it.
Yeah,
That seems to be
I
the
hear what you're
attitude.
saying, and I just was gonna show, like, some more photos of when we were at the con here. Here we are, Russ and I, and of course, Lael, the 1/6 Scale Man Network, and his girlfriend, Latoya T.
Yeah,
Um,
Latoya T's like a supermodel. Like, guys, seriously, she's so tall and so slender and so beautiful. It's like, you know, she's a real stunner.
she really
Lael's
is.
batting above his average. That's all I'm gonna say, man. Sorry, Lael.
She really is. I was surprised. I mean, honestly, when I first met her, I thought she was a model, which I've always said all along. But yeah, I mean, at least for me, Russ, I can't get too excited about it because so far the films have not been as exciting as I've hoped for them to be. So I don't have a lot of faith in them, and I guess they'll make them and we'll watch them. Nathan says he's going to wait. And thank you, Stavros. Hi, Stavros.
Hey,
Um,
Stavros, and we were talking about something that might be interested to you in your heritage later on as well. I'm guessing you're of Greek descent.
Yeah, it's gonna
That's
be
my
it
guess.
is definitely gonna be oh, and Tom is excited for the Ray movie, so all right, well, Tom, they're hopefully they'll get to make them, coming up, it's been a little while since they've made films too, Russ,
Mm.
and not only that, they've announced a lot of stuff that they haven't been able to get to because it's not easy to do all this stuff. They don't have unlimited resources, they just don't, and they are quite busy with these shows that they're making, which are also very expensive, and is kind of straining, their resources. Here, Nathan says, I'll wait for streaming for that. And he's interested in the first Jedi movie, but sure, Lucasfilm will allow
Well,
the announcements to disappear. Yeah, let's
can
see
I
what they
touch
do
on
with
that?
them.
So James Mangold, right? He's fucking great. Like, everybody knows he's great, and everyone is excited about that. But there's a certain segment on in the bit of YouTube that we occupy, a lot of commentators that are not happy about things. And one of the streams I was watching, and I hope this is not true, but there was like this, something inside you falls over and think, oh fuck, that's exactly what's going to happen. One of the guys, I think it was either the Drinker or Little Platoon or somebody, one of those guys on one of their live streams was saying, yes, but you do know that the person who discovers the Force and is the first Jedi is going to be a diverse woman of power taking on the sort of largely Caucasian patriarchy and all that, and that will be the beginning of the Force. And I thought, no, oh no, they're going to do that, aren't they? And that's kind of what I thought was a pretty legit take. We know nothing, so I'm not going to pre-hate this movie on something that another YouTuber said, but just looking at the trajectory of Disney, I can see that being the case. Yeah, I really can see that being the case. And you know what? If it is and it's good, it'll still be good because it's James Mangold. But it's kind of like on Christmas Day getting your present with no wrapping on it. Like, you kind of know the path they're going to be you're going to take, and that Mangold is going to be made to take. And I hope that everybody's wrong on that. But given Disney and the way that they are doing things and the way they are doubling down on perceived poor decisions, I can see that absolutely happening. And I suspect it will still be good, but it will still leave a sort of bit of a shitty taste in your mouth, knowing that behind this great film is actually uh, a political decision that Disney are trying to get their message across.
Yeah, and you make a good point with that. Here we have Kenneth Crayley Jr. Hi, Kenneth Crayley.
Have you been here before, Ken?
Welcome to Sunday Brunch. Says, hey guys, and good morning. At the end of the day, I want Star Wars, Marvel, DC, and Disney to do well and make great content. But if you make poor decisions, you won't win with the fan base. Yeah, that is
Can't be
true.
understated. It can't be understated, Ken. I've said this so many times. I don't know if I don't recognize your name. So if you're new here, welcome. And if I have missed you before, I can only apologize. But yeah, this is the thing, and I've said this on this channel a few times. Everyone bangs on about the general audience and how fan bases are like what 20%. The hardcore fans about 20% of the public, and we really don't matter and all that. And I kind of get that mathematical equation, but the fan base, the people of my age and younger and probably older, though it's getting tougher to be older than me these days, um, are not the general audience. They are not the ones that will spend God knows how many hundreds of dollars on tickets for Star Wars Celebration and buy Star Wars fucking. Like, you can buy a car there with the Star Wars branded car. It's insane. They're not going to buy the toys, the 1/6 scale figures that cost hundreds and hundreds of dollars. They're not going to buy the box set. They're not going to go back to the cinema and see it 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 28. I saw Aliens in the cinema 28 times. And I know Rob saw Empire Strikes Back like 100 times, whatever it was. General audiences don't generally do that. So you piss off your fan base and you alienate your fan base, people are starting to walk away, as has it's demonstrably true with Star Wars, with Andor, which is the best Star Wars since Empire Strikes Back, in my opinion. And now also too with season 3 of The Mandalorian, apparently the viewing figures have fallen off a cliff because people are just like, look, you clearly aren't interested in me. You don't want me. You want new people. Well, I don't want you. And that seems to be the case. So, long answer there, Ken. I'm sorry for that
Well,
rambling explanation.
it's okay. Hello, Mikey Lito. How are you this morning? Says good morning, everyone, and hello to my good friends and Russ Whitfield.
Hey, Mikey, it's so good to see you back, and it was love. I spoke to Mikey for the first time when our was here. I was in my kitchen. I think I was making us dinner, wasn't I?
Yes,
So it was lovely to speak to you, Mikey. And I am coming to the States soon. And if I get across to New York, uh, we can have a couple of drinks for sure. Same goes for you, Big Joe. Forget where you are, but if I can get out to you, I'll 100% will do that.
absolutely. And I did just want to mention that according to the reports, uh, James Mangold will create a film that will go back to the dawn of the Jedi. Dave Filoni's film will explore a more familiar era for Disney Plus subscribers and focus on the New Republic. And Filoni, who was the creator of Star Wars: The Clone Wars and Rebels, um, I guess is also going to. Oh yeah, his film is the one that's going to be in the New Republic. James Mangold will be doing. We'll go back to the Dawn of the Jedi. Create a film. It doesn't really have a name, and I don't know what the third film by Charmin Obed. Oh, here it is. Will lead a film set after the events of the Rise of Skywalker and feature Daisy Ridley in that one. So,
Do you reckon she'll have a same-sex relationship with Mara Jade and they'll adopt a bunch of kids?
let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. I mean, like I said, it's really hard to get these films made. I think it's harder than what they are describing it as. And I think that when they put a lot of these things on their plate, it's hard for them to accomplish it. So only time will tell, Russ, what will happen. But those were some of the announcements that were at Star Wars Celebration. But that's not the only thing that was announced. And I know that Kathleen says that they're pretty far along in development, but I think we all know the truth here that unfortunately, even when they get things that are pretty far in development, it's still hard to get them to the screen, Russ. It's really hard. They've had a lot of.
Talking to I've had a film in pre-production for like 3 years now, and they still
Yeah,
haven't, still haven't done it.
yeah, it's hard to even, let's say even when it's in pre-production or production, sometimes it ends up stopping, and then they have to get a new director or whatever it is. But they're talking about the Old Republic, and yeah, it would be interesting if we really get to see something like that. And then about a movie about with the Mandalorian finale, let's say whether his Star Wars movie is a Mandalorian finale, that would be the next step. I can't help but thinking about the Mandalorian because they had the Ahsoka trailer there, Russ, and I liked the Ahsoka trailer,
Mm.
but to be honest with you, it wasn't what I thought they said it was going to be. They said it was going to be kind of like the samurai based show, and when I look at the trailer, it doesn't feel samurai to me at all. Um, it's
It's interesting, isn't it, Aaron? Because like the Obi-Wan trailer was gangbusters as well, wasn't it? It's like, oh, I can't wait for. Oh, look, there's Darth Vader. Oh my god, this is gonna be so good. And then it was not. But the thing is, Rosario Dawson is eminently watchable. I guess as is Ewan McGregor. They're brilliant. Um, I don't know. It depends on the tone of the Ahsoka show, really, doesn't it? We don't really know a lot about it. I mean, I know it was sold as what were you saying? It was sold as a
as a kind of like a samurai action style film. And from what I'm looking at, it doesn't look like that. It just looks like pretty typical Star Wars, but I thought it was going to be like on a different type of level or some other kind of twist to it. And from the trailer, I didn't get that sense. They released two trailers. There's actually one because of some weird technicality. But even after that was released, it was very different from what I thought it was going to be like, and that's okay. But I think they've had to either change the tone or the way they described it was not what it actually is. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Ahsoka. And very clearly we can see that we're going to see the usual people that she's been talking to in the clone in Rebels rather.
Hmm.
So if you've watched Rebels, pretty much everybody who was in Rebels is going to be in the Ahsoka series. So there's no surprise there or shock or, I wonder what it's going to be about. Nothing like that. We already know pretty much the majority of the plot. So it's not necessarily a surprise on that end. Pretty predictable, more or less. And here, of course, is like part of the trailer there. Um, uh, so there is that. But here they're saying she teases a search for Thrawn and Ahsoka, and of course that's where the Clone Wars left off. I don't know how many years ago. That's sorry, the Rebels left off how many years ago. So it's not a tease that's new. It's something that's very, very predictable here. There's nothing new in this series. If you have been watching all of the Star Wars series, but a lot of people have not watched Rebels. A lot of people never watched that. So they don't know anything about it. I mean,
Yeah, over
it's
here, I never see the Clone Wars either. I mean, I kind of
yeah,
know what happens because of lore in inverted commas, but I've never actually watched it because it's a huge investment of time. But hey, should before I tell the Dead Ramiro story, should we catch up on some? Because there's been a load of comments down here.
sure. Which ones do you want to start at? There's a lot of comments. I know I don't have enough time to read all these comments, but
Ah,
I've been flashing some of them up on the screen. What I can say is a lot of you guys have been talking about Kathleen Kennedy, and she's still here. um, and I personally don't think she's going anywhere. Um, Also, something else that many of you have been talking about is pretty much how Star Wars has been hit and miss for you, just like how Russ feels for me as well. Um, and then also, a lot of you have been commenting on James Gunn, even and the DCU studios. Being ready for more from there, which is also very interesting. Um, Also, Nathan says that if you come to the US, you have to stop by Denver.
for sure, man, for sure.
And Bonzo talks about hardcore fans like a thing for the same reasons that the rest of the general audience does. Hardcore fans may be more passionate, but they are still bellwether as to what is good or not.
Mm.
We met a lot of people, Bonzo and everybody in the chat, at the convention who are normies. They're at Star Wars Celebration, but they're normies, and they did enjoy a lot of these series. So, I know that a lot of people would say if you give them your money, you're supporting a lot of stuff that may not be good. But for me, my primary goal of going to Star Wars Celebration was because of Andor, and I spoke to Russ about this ad nauseum about how much I love Andor and how when we went to Star Wars Celebration, one of my main goals was to meet Andy Serkis, which I did. And so, here,
No word of a lie, guys. I used to catch her sitting on the couch and she'd be on her phone and I'd be wondering what she's doing. I'd walk in, like with dinner or with a drink or whatever it was, and she'd be there watching Andor on the phone like constantly. This is fandom. This is like true fandom. What are you doing? I'm just watching the prison episode of Andor because I love it so much. I'm like, okay, cool.
it is very true.
On my
Yeah, I mean, that No Way Out scene was the clincher for me. And something that's also kind of interesting, Russ, is of course, and we really don't. We also found out that Lars Mikkelsen will be
mm.
playing Grand Admiral Thrawn, so that was cool. And he was there on the stage. I didn't go to any of these panels. And then Mary Elizabeth Winstead will be playing Hera, but there's also another woman who's an action star who will be playing Sabine Wren, and her name is Natasha Liu Bordizzo, and she's literally an action star. She's a trained martial artist, and she stars in martial arts films, and she's going to be playing Sabine Wren. So this is really something that's very special. I haven't seen a trained martial artist of this level play a character in Star Wars ever since Rogue One.
Mm.
So this is really, really very special to get her to play in the series. It kind of pushes it up a notch for me. But the other thing that I wanted to say is they talked about the premiere for Andor season 2, and it will be in August of 2024. So I was happy to hear that, guys. As you can imagine, I've been completely obsessing over Andor, and Russ has been so kind to put up with it. Goodness knows. Thank you for doing that, Russ.
Oh,
Um,
you was no hurry. You were on your phone. I mean, it's
Yeah, it's true. And Nathan, I'm sorry I can't click on everybody's comments. There are so many comments here. Nathan talks about the season finale of Mando. Yeah, I feel like you make a good point with this, Nathan, because when when I watched the season finale of The Mandalorian, and I'm sure Russ, you felt the same way. We watched it together, right? Or
no,
no,
we didn't.
I
No, we
come
didn't.
home. That's right.
Mm.
Um, Russ, you did see the season finale of The Mandalorian, right?
I did, and I guess we can segue onto the Mandalorian now, right? The
Yes.
season, the season as a whole. Um, look, it's not news, is it, guys? It just seemed to sort of lack any direction. And the one episode that I absolutely went batshit for, because I'd heard, it's directionless, it's this, it's that, and I've been watching it, and and Bo-Katan is taking over, and it's now the Mandalorian and all that stuff. And I'm fine with that. Like Katie Sackhoff is Katie Sackhoff. Frankly, I'd rather watch her than Pedro Pascal, right? So I'm a fan of Katie Sackhoff, so that was all good. And I had this one episode that Bo and Mando Din Djarin are on this mission, and then boom, it just cuts, and there we are on Coruscant, and you had like the great and the good of Is it Coruscanti society? Um, you
Yes.
know, getting pissed up, and they're like, oh, what is it? The New Republic now, or the Empire? Oh, I don't know. Yeah, who cares? It was the old Republic, 30 years ago. Now it's the Empire. Now it's the new. I don't care. As long as the wine's flying. And that was like a really, really. It's just a real nice slice of life right there. Like, I don't give a shit, right? They're rolling in money, and they couldn't care who's in charge as long as the champagne keeps flowing. Then it cuts to uh, the Empire. What was it the repurposing? I can forget the name of the
New
of
Republic.
no, 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 no. They have the
Oh no,
ex-Imperials,
the Shadow Collective.
yeah, the Shadow Collective, right? But they're in a program to sort of reintegrate them into,
Oh no, no, no. I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right. I'm sorry. That's the yeah, it's the when the old Empire people are trying
yeah,
to
the reintegration program,
Yeah,
we'll
I'm
call it,
sorry.
and we have the guy that was the clone expert from the first episode of Mandalorian, and he hooks up with a bunch of ex-Imperials, and the one woman is there who was Moff Gideon's number two,
Yes,
and
Kale.
yeah, sorry, what was her name? Kane.
I think her name is it Kale? It's funny that we don't know the names of these people.
Uh,
Um
well, I've only watched it the one time. Well, yeah, I think her name is Kane. So you had Kane there, and she keeps asking this clone guy, look, are you sure about this? Because yeah, you're pretty hardcore with the Empire, and I need to make sure that you are fully committed to the New Republic, and like, forgetting about this remnant. And he's like, yeah, no, 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 I just want to help. I just want to help. And they had this like sort of political come heist thriller where they're doing all this stuff to get bits and pieces to help with the cloning program, help with the medical programs, and all that kind of thing. Kane Biscuits. I don't think that was her name,
it's
but
Celia Kane.
Celia Kane, right? Celia Kane. Yes, so Kane. And then Kane takes him on this mission, and he's shitting himself, and she's like, "No, no, no, it's going to be fine." Then, of course, you find out she double crosses him, and you think, "Oh my god, you know what? Why did she do that?" And then, of course, you find out she's still loyal to the Empire, and she mind wipes him. And I just thought, "Oh man, this is so deep. Like this is like Mandalorian's just taken a leap up in quality. There was deep stuff going on there. What I loved about that episode as well was when she was showing him around Coruscant, and she's saying, and they had the big rock growing out of the middle of the pavement and all the rest of it, and she's like, "Dude, it's not the Empire. You can touch the rock." And he goes out to touch the rock, and then this droid comes out and goes, "You can't touch the rock." And it was so well done, right? That from Kane's perspective, the New Republic is just as fascistic as the Empire was to other people. And I thought that was a really smart thing. No talking, no smoking, follow the orange line, don't touch this, don't touch that. Nothing had changed as far, everything had changed for the worst as far as she's concerned. And as far as the audience concerned, actually nothing's changed. These guys are fascists too. They just got the veneer of decency about them, and they're not wearing the black uniforms and the stormtroopers, but essentially the rules are just as draconian. And I loved all of that stuff, and I thought, this is the direction this show's going. Wow, this has taken a dark turn. But then the criticisms that have been raised by so many people of this show came into stark relief, because then I just forgot about that. Like that whole setup of this whole intrigue and everything that was going on, and the mind wipe guy and the blah, and it just disappeared off into the ether. We got a little bit of a confirmation that, yeah, she is working for Moff Gideon, as if we didn't know by the end when she mind wiped the guy already. And yeah, so it was very, very disjointed. And to come full circle to the last episode, a lot of, I think some of the people that are writing the show have come out and said, well, it's called The Mandalorian, not a Mandalorian called Din Djarin. So the end of this show, of this season, looked like an end for Din Djarin. Right, he's stopped being the homeless bounty hunter. He's officially adopted Grogu, and he became the sheriff of the town, which is kind of goes back full circle to, I think, to one of the beginning episodes where he meets a sheriff that's dressed up in Mandalorian armor, which I quite like. That was Timothy Oliphant, I think, was playing that
Yes.
guy. Yeah, right.
Yes.
So, and then just the way it sort of did that sort of 1970s circle thing when it just closed on him and the kid, and that was it. And then it faded out. And I thought, I know they're doing a season 4, but I don't see where this goes now. I think, yeah, leave him. And I imagine that season 4 will deal with Bo-Katan and Thrawn, and have some crossover with Boba Fett and Ahsoka and the Acolyte, if that takes place. And I think Din Djarin's done until the movie. That's Russ's hot take, and I could be completely wrong, but that's what I think they'll do.
Well, I think that overall, The Mandalorian season 3 was entertaining, but and we did get to see a lot more about Mandalorian culture, which is what I wanted to see. I wanted to see
Mm.
those rituals. I wanted to see them, say the creed and do all that sort of stuff. But there were a lot of things that kind of surprised me, or at least I didn't know. For example, I always assumed that Grogu had already been adopted by Mando. Like, that's shocked me. I'm like, he wasn't already adopted. So that was something that I was unaware of. And they kind of, he coyly said he's got to become a Mandalorian apprentice. And I thought that would make a great video game, Mandalorian Apprentice or something like that. But the point is that I thought that, they were going to stay with the Coven on, or at least with the other Mandalorians on Mandalore, and they're not there. They're on Navarro somewhere else. They're not really part of building back Mandalore. So, his path is just going to be completely different, and they're not really going to be hanging out or spending a lot of time with the covert anymore, with the Death Watch, Children of the Watch Mandalorians. But at least at the conclusion of all this, I guess Gideon is killed. He had those freaky looking clones that we saw, and Grogu, was able to save the day at the end, so they didn't all get killed. But they could have wrapped up a lot of this, what we saw in a few episodes in the beginning of the series, and done something else with the remainder of the series. Maybe we could have seen more fighting. It could have been more gladiator style Mandalorian stuff.
Well, it just could have been more connected as a season. I think it seemed to be. I don't know, like they had enough story for like 4 episodes, and they had to then sort of pad it out with 4 other episodes of unconnected stuff that really just didn't matter. That's what it sort of felt like,
I
you
I
know,
would have rather just had 4 episodes,
right?
of high quality, show,
Or
the
two
last one.
2-hour specials, the retaking of Mandalore, and they just
Yes,
do that, and they just do that, and don't
yes,
worry about the side quests, and don't worry about Kane, and don't worry about Jack Black and
and Lizzo. You know something?
Lizzo
Jack
and
Black
Christopher
is
Lloyd.
a fantastic actor, and I saw him in Super Mario Brothers, his voice acting, and
Mm.
he made me fall in love with Bowser, which is something I wasn't expecting. But that's where you use somebody like Jack Black, not in this role in that episode. It wasn't his forte, and it wasn't Lizzo's forte either. If you want to get her up there singing and dancing, I'm all for that. But use these actors to the talents that they have, to what they specialize in, not in something that's kind of mediocre, and that's what that was. But this season, Russ, we did see a lot of situations where droids were focused on, and that complete planet, all they ever wanted was to keep the droids running so they could enjoy their luxury. Not too different from the Coruscant elite, who I love, because as we all know, Coruscant, it's not the center of the universe, but it might as well be.
Mm.
I do love those elites who pretend like everything is fine and they don't even know the name of who's running what. They don't care. And I think that a good portion of the galaxy might be like that, in the Star Wars universe. And we hadn't really seen that before, but
I
we
know.
saw it in
I
The
must tell
Mandalorian
you,
season 3.
about the droids. I saw this random thing on YouTube, by a real hater, and I forget who it was, but this guy, is one of the ones that just even if Disney released a gold-plated Star Wars, he would hate it. He's one of those types. Um, but he's an intelligent guy, very intellectual. I forget the name of the YouTuber. Anyway, doesn't matter. But he raised a thing about droids and what we know about droids in the 40-year history of Star Wars, and how the Mandalorians take on droids paints everything in a pretty sinister light. Now, this is a bullshit fan theory, but it did make me chuckle. So we know from the original Star Wars trilogy that droids the droids is from their point of view, right? But the people in that story just treat the droids like they're toasters. Like when R5D4 is going to be sold to the Owen and Baru, it blows up, and they go, "Yeah, I don't want that one. Give me that one." And they stick a restraining bolt on them. Then you got Empire Strikes Back when C3PO is going on, and they just turn him off and ignore him, and they want him to do this, and he's saying, "Well, I'm not a R2 unit. I need his help." And they're like, "You're useless," and he puts his hand over his mouth, and they basically treat the droids like shit, but like machines. Actually, not even like shit. They're just there to do a job. And the sequel and the prequel trilogy, Obi-Wan's flying a spaceship and the droid gets blown up and he's like, oh dear. It's more like, oh, not my friend, the droid has been blown up. It's more like, oh shit, now I need to get a new droid. Then we got this episode of Mandalorian where Mando, who famously hates droids, is going around kicking them and beating them and shooting them and all that kind of stuff. But in that episode, we actually find out that droids have wants and needs and feelings and pubs that they go to. So what does that say about what point is he trying to make? Because basically they've just been treating them like absolute slaves for 40 years. What does it say about Han Solo? What does it say about Luke? What does it say about Obi-Wan? He doesn't even remember R2D2. It's like, well, because there must be so many R2 units. So it just seems to sort of come out of left field a little bit. And I thought it was quite an interesting take anyway.
No, it is something to think about. And to be honest with you, that's probably how most people think about droids in the Star Wars universe. They are tools, and that they're not, in some cases where I think personally some of them are AIs. R5 really did prove him or herself, or whatever R5's orientation is,
Hmm.
in this one. And it felt that was the most Star Wars feeling part to me, when
Hmm.
R5 plugged himself into the computer and had to shut off the different fields, the force fields,
Mm,
so that the Mandalorian could fight. And I'm like, this is 100% Star Wars. That's the
mm.
type of stuff that, you would have your R2 unit doing, or your R5 unit doing, to help you through so you can get your mission
I
done.
think you mean astromech droid.
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, absolutely. Sorry. What did I say? I said something else.
You see your R5, your R2, they're astromechs, don't you know?
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, that's their it's R5D4 or something like
It
that.
is, yeah, and I think he's the one from Star Wars, isn't it? It's the same one that's been
And
repaired.
so he does probably know as much as R2, and he's the one who's recording what's going on in this section of space.
Mm,
I kind of think it's very interesting. And I'm sorry. Oh, yes. Thank you, Stavros. Team Bowser for Peaches. He's
mhm.
talking about the Super Mario
Yeah,
movie.
Super Mario, yeah.
Nathan says, I completely agree with you, RM and Russ, about the season of Mando. And he also says Jack Black's character in Mando was shady, but he was shady enough to make sure he didn't have to go into that rehab program. There was no way that guy was going in a rehab
Yeah.
program. Stubble says, I wonder why they set up the
Oh, stop it.
jetpacks to have limited range in the Big Bird episode when they flew, and then into orbit in the finale. They should have some consistency. I think that they were flying for hours, Stubble, chasing that bird. I think it's much longer than what we witnessed, but you make a good point, Stubble. However, I did enjoy seeing those Mandalorians jump from orbit into the atmosphere, and then from the atmosphere into orbit in their suits. It was crazy. It was unbelievable.
It's an interesting point actually, Stubble, because if it was awesome, like completely mind-blowingly awesome, then you wouldn't be asking that question. You would just sort of take it as read. But when the show is sort of collapsing under its own weight of, or floating away because of its lack of weight, actually would be maybe a better way of saying that. Like, you notice these things. It's the same with Obi-Wan. Like, you notice all of the stupid decisions because the show itself is not engaging enough, not well written enough to carry you along with it, and for you to just wear it, right? And that's kind of the point. Because I ended up thinking that as well. I thought, hang on, he's flying into space, and they ran out of petrol doing that. And as our room said, you just have to sort of gloss over it and say, oh well, they must have been flying for hours.
Yeah, I imagine so. But it's a good point, Stubble, something to think about. Norwegian Kryptonian, thank you so much for the 59 Norwegian kroner. Is it kroner? Thank you so much, Norwegian Kryptonian. I hope you are well, uh, and having a good day. Says, I have a feeling Bo-Katan's new shoulder armor is going to cost me and Rob about 300 bucks. Well, it is pricey, and I guarantee you by the next time we see her, she might be in full shiny Beskar armor. Who knows? But it really was expensive. And I think that they wanted to wrap all these storylines up and not really address these anymore. In the next season of The Mandalorian, we are not going to be even talking about quite a few of these characters, I think, going forward. It might just be Din and Grogu again, and the adventures and misadventures of these guys, as Grogu's going to be a Mandalorian apprentice. But I gave the series, Russ, an 8.5 out of 10 because it was fun to watch. There were certain things in it that were great. However, I thought this season was going to be a lot more fighting with Mandalorians, and we were going to see a lot more bloodshed. We didn't really get that, and that's okay. But that's what I thought this season was going to be more like. Instead, we got a little bit more culture. Those storylines got wrapped up. You couldn't best the ending of season 2. We could never best that. I don't think we ever will best the season 2 finale. So they did what they could. But this is not the Gilroy writing team of
No.
Andor. I think everybody should keep that in mind. The Gilroy brothers are masterminds when it comes to writing.
You
And
something Thor Skywalker said. He said, I think it's Thor Skywalker. I think that's that YouTube channel. And he said, like, the thing that disappointed him most about the sort of ending of the Mandalorian is all the fan theories that we had about, well, look, she's got horns on that helmet, and the armor has got horns. Maybe there's going to be some betrayal. Maybe this Imperial thing's going to go somewhere. And actually, the fan theories were a lot better and a lot better thought out and a lot more interesting than what they actually delivered in the end, which is kind of like, oh no, everyone's fine. Um, yeah, so yeah, I don't know what's going to happen in the next season. But before we move on to the next thing,
Yes.
unless you had something else you wanted to round off with.
No, I don't. I feel like that was enough for The Mandalorian to say now because we're catching up on 2 weeks worth of not talking
Hmm.
on Sunday brunch. And there's a lot that, we want to cover. And obviously it's impossible for us to cover everything. And I really do have to say that, Russ and we really do want to cover everything, but it's impossible for us to cover everything we want to say. Um, but what should we move on to next,
Well,
Russ?
I'll tell you what happened at Star Wars Celebration
Yes.
with Denise Goff.
Yes.
So our was going to go get her autograph, and she wanted to meet Andy Serkis, but he was outside smoking a fag or whatever, and he was late. So we then joined the Denise Goff queue,
And we
and
saw all those celebrities while we were waiting in line, right, Russ?
well, we totally did. I even saw Apollo Creed, and I didn't know that I could have just walked up to him and said, thanks, man. And I
Mhm.
didn't realize that until afterwards because I thought you had to have a ticket.
No, we don't.
So I was really upset that I didn't speak to Apollo
I should
because,
have
like,
mentioned it to you. I'm sorry.
Carl Weathers is someone that's been there my whole life. My dad took me to see Rocky 3 in the cinema in 1981 or 82. And I just love those films. And of course, now Carl Weathers has been in so many things. And I just love Carl Weathers. Anyway, I didn't get to speak to him, but I did get to speak to Denise Goff. So she's signing our poster.
Yes, my Andor poster because she's Dedra Miro. So I had to have the signature of Denise Goff. And incidentally, just a few minutes before, I had seen the guy who plays Cyril Kane. Um, his name is Kyle Solar. Just a few minutes before that, or the day before. So I
Mm.
got to see the two stars. I got to see Cyril and Dedra at Star Wars Celebration. It was just unbelievable. And, Russ was with me. That was a Saturday. Russ, thank you so much for going with me that day and putting up with me waiting online, trying to get Denise Goff's autograph. I so appreciate that you did that.
Yeah, I got really drunk that night as well. We stayed up until 2 o'clock in the morning.
Nice.
However, so as Denise is signing this thing, I said to her, "May I just say that your performance in that show, and in fact everybody's performance in Andor, elevated this for me as I'm over 50." I said to her, it elevated it to me to be the best Star Wars I've seen since Empire Strikes Back. Like, your performance is absolutely fantastic. And can I ask you a question? She sort of stopped signing and she sort of looked up to you. "Oh, thanks very much. Yeah, sure, of course you can ask me a question. What would you like to ask?" And I said, "Look, in that scene outside the ISB base, Dedra is accosted by Cyril,
Yes.
grabs hold of her, right? There he is. Um, and he grabs hold of her. And the way that Dedra's looking at him, you're all tensed up. I said, and your eyes are like that. And I don't know what's going on in Dedra's mind. Like, is she disgusted? Is she intrigued? Is she fascinated that this guy is so infatuated with her? He's like a completely, like, this. She's never had this before, right? What was going on? And Denise said, when I went into that scene, I had it in. I'd read the script, obviously read the script, and I had it in my mind that Dedra was disgusted by this creepy guy coming and accosted her, and she wants to throw him into prison, and that's the be all and end all of it. And she said, then I watched it back, and you're right. I don't know what she's thinking either. Like, the performance in that, she said, and that's what happens when me and Kyle get together, and that's probably why we were cast, because we have this thing that these characters need. She's not sure about him. She doesn't know. I don't know what to make of it. He knows what he wants. She isn't sure, and that was in my performance because I had no idea how that worked until I got there and we started doing it. And she basically said, I'm paraphrasing, when I'm with Kyle, I stop being Denise and become Dedra. And then she said, "Thank you very much for asking me such a great question." I was like, "Yeah," and yeah, and then we moved on. But it was really nice to uh, meet her because she's one of my favorite Star Wars characters of all time. I've said it before, and it's not because she's insanely beautiful. Of course, she is, but I just loved that character. I just love what they did with her. And yeah, talking to that gal, my fondest wish for Cyril and Dedra is for them to sort of like win at the end, and they get their dream posting to the Emperor's new battle station, and they're going off in the shuttle and they're fucking high fiving. Oh, we did it! We smashed it! We're on the Death Star, and you leave them. You just leave them there on the way to their great new posting. They've been given a promotion. They're off to be on the Death Star because we know what's going to happen to the Death Star, but they don't. I think that would be such a lovely ending for those two characters. But yeah, it was brilliant to meet her, and I really really enjoyed it.
She was so elegant,
Hmm.
she was such a nice woman, and, she did sign she liked the poster because she said it was like there was a lot of space
Mm,
of her on that particular poster, and, it hadn't occurred to me that, that would be important, but, her character was so important in Andor that you did need a lot of space, for her character there, and she signed the poster. It's a poster made by Sam Gilby that had all of the actors in Andor on it, the artwork that they made, official artwork for Star Wars Celebration, and I loved the poster, so I bought it, and I knew I was going to get her autograph. What I didn't know was just how amazing this actress is. She's really a lovely woman, and she took the time to talk to us
mm,
about how she felt about this role. And I think, to be honest with you, a lot of the actors, especially in Andor, didn't realize the impact that they had on the Star Wars community with that particular show. I think that the show had a different type of response than what they thought. And she's a perfect example of this. Although Kyle Solar, who was also he was there, but you couldn't get his autograph, but he was there. I think a lot of the stars were there, but either couldn't do the signings or they couldn't do the appearances for whatever reason. But a lot of them were in town, but were not available, or else I would have gotten his autograph as well, which would have been great to have asked the counter question, Russ, to your question
mm.
about that. And we will, guys. Star Wars Celebration 2025 is going to be in Japan. And Russ, I expect you to go. Uh,
I don't like Japan. I've been.
well, it's the celebration that is going to be there. So I don't know if he's going to be there or not, but maybe he'll be at another con in the States. So that's something
Maybe.
to think about too. Kyle Solar might appear. So maybe we can get the answer from him on the other side. Yeah, and Darth Plato says Andor production actors took the job seriously. And Mario says Russ is right. Andor is the best thing we've had after Empire Strikes Back. Um, and Gary says you're too tall for Japan.
Do you know, Gary? I'm not very tall. I'm only like 5'9", so I can get away with it. But I've been there. I didn't like it so much, to be honest with you. I was there on my own. But what next? I guess we need to touch briefly on the controversy over Netflix and Jada Pinkett Smith's groundbreaking new docu series called
I
African Queen.
will. I will.
Um,
I did want to say that I did, I wanted to get a photograph and autograph with Andy Serkis.
oh
And
yeah, yeah.
so that same day when you were with me, Russ, we went and we got Andy Serkis's autograph on the
Mm,
poster. And I got a chance to ask Andy about, you asked him something, and then I asked him about, I said, I really like the role you played in Luther. And he said he almost didn't take that role, but he decided to take it, but he wasn't going to take it because it's kind of controversial role. You asked him something. I can't remember what you asked him.
I asked him about the Batman 2
Yes.
and how that was going, and I said there's gonna be more of you in it because like you, I said it, I was intrigued by your take on that character simply because how do you follow Jeremy Irons? Jeremy Irons, whatever you think of those movies, he was a standout. Like he was absolutely amazing, and your take was so different. You're a different physicality, different. Everything was different, and I really, really liked it. And hopefully there's going to be more of you in the new one because I think that dynamic between Bruce and Alfred is quintessential to Batman. And he said, "Oh, actually, I don't know, man, because like he's still writing it, but I'm definitely in it." And then he laughed.
It was so good. He also took time to talk to us, Russ. Like, he took his time with us, and I really liked that he did that. I wasn't expecting them to do that when we were having the autographs, Russ. Like, this was very different than experience. The autographs are really worth it if you could ask the actor something worthwhile, which is what I think we did. And they kind of liked that we did that, Russ. So I'm kind of learning that there is a way to kind of speak to these actors where they do become interested and become engaged. And of course, guys, you already know the next day I took a photograph with Andy and told him about Tango Shalom. So I know I shared that story with many of you already. I surprised Andy about Tango Shalom. He did not know that that I knew it. He loves the movie, and that he knows Gabe, and so that was a lot of fun. That also added to it. And I was not expecting that type of experience at Star Wars Celebration. I also got a chance to see Ewan McGregor and I can't
Hayden
remember his name.
Christensen.
Hayden Christensen. Yeah, I'm totally forgetting everybody's names. At Celebration as well. So, and I also took a picture with Katie Sackhoff, which really I didn't know. This was before the Mandalorian finale and everything, and honestly, before it went even any further. But here I am with her. That's me and
Mm.
Katie Sackhoff. And she's very, very tall. She's like a model as well. She's very tall. She's just so beautiful and very, very kind. And she's like, come here. She's like, hello. She was so sweet to me. I really liked her. And of course, this is my picture with Andy Serkis.
Mhm.
So thank you for bearing with me, guys. And Russ, thank you for going with me that Saturday. It
That was
was
good fun.
it was wonderful. Such a fun day. And I'm really happy that we did that. Now, there's this crazy controversy because it is crazy. It is crazy, Russ. It's absolutely bonkers, crazy, nuts. And I'm really kind of disappointed in what I'm seeing because Netflix has been great with their Age of Empires stories. As I told you, Russ, I was completely taken by how accurate, how they decided to go historically accurate with the Roman Empire, with the Ottoman Empire. I've never
Mm.
seen such a historically accurate depiction combined with an historically accurate dramatization of the life of Caligula. I'd never seen this before. And I think it was beautifully done. I felt that just even from a standpoint of entertainment, you didn't need to change any of the story because the story alone was compelling,
Mhm.
Russ. The story alone of Caligula's life was compelling. You didn't need to kind of like make it into a spectacle. It was a shocking, compelling story. How on earth did he even survive, being a prisoner? I just think that Netflix managed to fund some incredibly, significant historical productions. And I was looking forward to more of this. I was looking forward to more historically accurate productions because we don't get dramatizations that are like this. We don't get stuff like that. And then comes Cleopatra.
Oh. Yeah. So this is a show called African Queens, produced by Jada Pinkett Smith, that has made the inexplicable decision to cast an African American or an African English lady, lady of African descent, as Cleopatra. Fine. But it's not that. It's that they've got pseudo experts on there, talking heads on there, trying to claim that they have absolute authentic proof that Cleopatra was in fact, resembled a sub-Saharan African person and was, definitely black, and all the Egyptians were definitely sub-Saharan black, and the whole thing has been completely whitewashed and all of that in a documentary. This is basically rewriting history for reasons which I cannot understand, because again, it's like the Ray decision. If you're the boss, one of the bosses of Netflix, that has is going to do this. Well, we're going to cop a lot of shit for this. Are you sure that you're right? Oh yeah, yeah, 100%. That she was definitely black. No, she wasn't. And everybody who knows anything about anything to do with that time period absolutely knows that this lady was not. Um, she's Africa. Well, was born in Africa, maybe, certainly, but she wasn't a black woman because she was a Macedonian woman, and they were interbred. In fact, they wanted to keep their line so pure. So this notion that who know what why thou why are you doing this anyway? So people were bent out of shape about it and annoyed about it and all the rest of it. But the people who were most especially annoyed about it were the Egyptologists and archaeologists in Egypt itself. So much so that they have now decided to take out a lawsuit against Netflix to get this show taken off the air before it even gets started. Because basically, what they're saying is that no, this is cultural appropriation. No, we will not have our history, our Egyptian history, co-opted by Americans with a an American centric agenda to uh, Africanize absolutely everything. We're not having it. So, so they've got a lawyer, and they're going to try and get this stopped, which is her. That's the word, Darth Player, Afrocentrism. That's the one I was looking for, which is hilarious. Watching the wokosos of this world sort of tie themselves in knots because you can't accuse the predominantly African Muslim non-white Egyptians have been in any way, shape, or form racist. Yeah, that argument doesn't fly,
Well,
right? So
yeah, I
that
mean, this is
that
very
defense has been
interesting.
shit canned, right?
This is very interesting because Mario makes a good point here about how the BBC did their Anne Boleyn, and they chose a black actress to play that role. And we see a lot of different actresses play many different roles. For example, I'll give you another example, Mario, in Bridgerton, where they very explicitly say everything is all fantasy. None of this is historically accurate. This show is purely for speculation. It's for fun. It's for fantasy. Enjoy it. Just enjoy the sexy, craziness of the show. It's meant
Mm.
for fun. None of it's historically accurate. We just want you to have fun in the show and enjoy it. And that is a very different experience. And it's also very different when they decide to cast somebody who may not match, the ethnicity of the character. And they'll say, this is the person. I remember very specifically, the BBC said that we cast the best actress for the job, but they did not say that that actress matches the ethnicity of the character that they were playing. They never said anything about that, if I remember correctly, right, Russ?
Right.
They never said that she matches the ethnicity of the character. They said we chose the best actress to play that role, that Anne Boleyn role. On the BBC. And I remember that very specifically. They said she was the best actress, but they didn't claim that Anne Boleyn looked like this actress, had the same ethnic background, whatever you want to call it. They just said that we like the actress, so therefore she's going to play it. In this particular case, in this particular show, what they are claiming is that Cleopatra is an African of African descent. And they're very specific in at least I haven't seen it because it hasn't been released. But what they're claiming is that it doesn't matter what history tells us. All that matters is the fact that your mother and grandmother told you that this is what she is, and therefore that's what she must be.
Right,
So
right.
this is very interesting in a sense, Russ, of, if this was an editorial piece, this would have been fine. It's my opinion that this is what this person is. And that's
Not
how I
even
feel.
Aaron, because your opinion in this aspect is completely not correct. This is like me coming on here and trying to claim Horatio Nelson. It was actually from Jamaica, and his entire history has been whitewashed by the British Empire. And no, he was, he loved Jamaica, and like, that's why there's accounts of him having a funny accent. It's not because he's got a Norfolk accent; it's because his accent's actually Jamaican, and that's why it's all a code. And that guy on Nelson's column isn't Nelson. Nelson had dreadlocks, and he'd be like, that's my opinion. Yeah, okay, that's your opinion, Rush. Your wrong opinion. And this is the same thing. Like, this is wrong. This is like completely wrong. And I have that point that you made, right? Um, about this is something your grandmother told you. There's literally a clip on the trailer of the documentary
Yes,
that has
yes,
this African American lady saying,
yeah.
"Yeah, well, I don't care what anybody says. My grandma told me that Cleopatra is a black woman, and that's what I'm going with." Well, all right. Well, your grandmother was probably fucking drunk or didn't know who Cleopatra was. Love, she wasn't. She's a Macedonian Greek princess,
And also,
pharaoh
Russ,
at this point.
from an academic point of view, academics discuss stuff like this all the time. So they may publish articles that will say, was this person this? And we already know that they're just talking about it, doesn't necessarily mean what they're talking about is the correct information. What I'm trying to say is that that's not what this particular production is about. It's a production where the person is saying, everybody else is wrong and I'm right. And that's a fact. And so I think
Yeah,
it's very bold for them to put out something like this, considering what Netflix has been giving us with academics who have been the most reliable academics in the other series. Russ, what the hell happened? How did this happen? And to be honest with you, Russ, I think it's kind of like a bad mark on Netflix being kind of, you know, entangled in this mess, because it is a big mess. It's a mess and it's a fantasy. Um, but my question really is it going to do more damage, to be honest with you, with people who want to hold on to this notion?
but it's asinine. It's this is not up for debate. Like, there are pictures of her, literal pictures that have survived. There are busts of this woman that have survived. Like, she's not black African. She just isn't. Just wasn't. And that's what it is. And it's okay. It's absolutely fine for her not to be black African. Like, not everybody in history that did something of worth needs to have some sort of African connection, right? It's just retarded. It's just retarded. It's just the most stupid. I don't know, because they must have known. It's literally the opening their legs and saying, "Kick me as hard as you can in the bollocks, please, academia." And literally, academia is lining up to kick them in the bollocks. I, why would you do this?
Well, I
Especially, as you have said, given their track record
yeah, and
of producing excellent quality docs.
I think this is really interesting too. Here it says that a top no, where is it? The lawyer has filed a complaint that accuses I can't read this.
Let me do it.
Um
Let me do it. A lawyer has
yes.
filed a complaint that accuses African Queen Cleopatra of violating media laws, aiming to erase Egyptian identity. A top archaeologist insisted Cleopatra was light-skinned and not black, but the producer said her heritage is highly debated. The actress playing her told critics, "If you don't like the casting, don't watch the show," because that always goes down well with audiences, does it not? That particular stuff.
And as far as I know, let's say I'm not an Egyptologist. I'm not, but I do consider myself an academic, and her heritage is not highly debated. They know what her heritage was. I think that it's been speculated. People have speculated. It's highly speculated. Russ, how about on your end, Russ?
No, it's not, because there are pictures and busts that exist of her. She was not black African. And any debate about this comes from an Afrocentrist, thank you again, Darth Plato. Um, it's just bollocks. It's just made up. It's literally just making shit up, and you're trying to claim it as fact. In fact, look, there's more evidence supporting Graham Hancock's lost Atlantean civilization that it was a thing. Now that they found Göbekli Tepe, right, in Turkey, that's 11,500 years old. All his facts. I think Hancock's a bit of a grifter, but all of a sudden he's like landed on a fact, and his whole system has come together over this. There's more evidence supporting the lost civilization of Atlantis than there is of Queen Cleopatra being a sub-Saharan African. It's just, it's
Yes.
ridiculous. She's
And
Greek,
Bonzo, I still
Macedonian.
have a little bit of congestion, so I'm sorry I had to, like I just have a little bit of congestion, so that's why I just had to blow my nose a few times, guys, so when you see me, I'm kinda, like, doing that because 'cause I'm just blowing my nose, but, um, you know what's also kinda interesting about this, um, is the I kinda think this is a little, eh I mean, I almost think it's, propaganda-ish.
Mm,
And the reason why I'm saying that is because, you know, we haven't seen it. We haven't seen this production. So it's impossible for me to go ahead and say, well, this is my assessment of it. But from what we've seen, I it's not necessarily a celebratory type of production of Cleopatra, in my opinion. You know, and I think that if there was even a doubt about her ethnicity, and if we were at that point in history where we were doubting this, that would be a different situation. And then maybe you could go ahead and say, you know, what you think. But that's not where we are, and we've never been at that point. So, you know, it's kind of like you know, a belief that they just want to project. And it's very deliberate. It's very deliberate, Russ, almost to a flaw where there's no going back from this. The idea that anybody could even get sued over this is remarkable. Um, but I think that this may result or may actually send a message to people about wanting to produce shows and whether or not they can go ahead and produce a show and say this is based on fact or not. Russ, what do you think?
I think that this, in for Netflix, might be its Rings of Power moment where, like, as I said at the time, you know, they just picked the wrong fan base to mess with in the Lord of the Rings lot, and that transpired that it wasn't just Lord of the Rings fans, of which there are legion. It was everybody just said, "Oh, I'm not." I think it had like something like a 35% or a 37% completion rate, which is a disaster in terms of a show that cost $1 billion, and that's in the rest of the world. And in America, it had a 45% completion rate, and we know that Netflix cans a show if it has a 50% or less completion rate. So that tells you all you need to know about Rings of Power. And I think this might be the same thing. Like, the backlash has been immense, and for once they can't say it's just a bunch of overweight white man babies screaming from their parents' basement. No, these are Egyptian archaeologists and lawyers that are coming after you for um, the statements got, you know, for basically bastardizing their culture, and they're not happy about it. And you can't call them racist because M- Muslim Arab, you know, Muslim Egyptians. No, absolutely not. They're
Well,
not
there
racist.
You know, I'm going to be honest with you, Russ, and you and I have talked about the whole notion of the people of color and how they try to put everybody into that group. And there are a lot of people who have been, you know, put into that group, and they're like, we don't belong in that group. You know, it's like we don't define ourselves the way that you want to define ourselves with
Mm.
that nomic, or if you want to call it, that doesn't really describe us. That's something that you created from your point of view, from your world point of view, and we don't that's not us. That's not how we would describe us. And I think that this might be a perfect example. Not exactly, but and hello, random Rick reviews, how are you?
Hey, Rick.
Hope you are well. It's Yes, it's produced by Jada Pinkett Smith, Nathan. I think what's really interesting about this, at least for another thing that is kind of not being said, is for the longest time Egyptologists, and let's say an ethnically Egyptian Egyptologists, were not being taken seriously because of their preservation and research methods. And over the past 20 years, they've gone out of their way to credentialize themselves. They built the new museum, which is a fantastic museum in Cairo. And they're following methods which I guess, you know, let's say would be considered more overly acceptable in the academic world. And it's really interesting that this has come up at this moment because it focuses on an area of or a region of the world that has been heavily criticized, just even for, let's say, their lack of professionalism in some cases, their lack of academic way of doing things. And now that they have all their I's dotted and T's crossed, they're being attacked, in a sense. This whole thing about whether or not they are the ones who would know the truth. They know the truth about what this woman was, and her role in their, let's say, land's history is. Now an outside group with no real, information or proof is attacking them again. That's how I'm looking at this, Russ.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, as I said earlier on, you've got this American production, this American activist coming in and basically saying, no, this is how history, this is how we want history to have been. Therefore, you were all black Africans back in the day, and it's only since the Arabs invaded that you got to be this way, and everybody knows the truth, and that's why the Sphinx looks like it looks like that. And despite the overwhelming evidence to the contrary, it's just overwhelming. It's look, it's a fact. It's kind of like saying, well, yeah, black people built Stonehenge. No, they didn't. Yeah, no, they didn't.
And
Um,
hello, William La Rochelle. How are you
hey,
today? Good to see you here as we are just talking about a lot of this stuff. And Stavros says it's definitely going to court.
I
Um,
imagine, I imagine it will, because if Netflix is, I don't think the Egyptian archaeologist and the lawyer that's taking it are going to take a settlement. We'll give you $1 million. No, they don't want $1 million. They don't want this seen. They don't want it put out there. And that's more to the point. So I think you might be right there. I think it probably is going to court.
and Gary is talking about the different ways that, different ethnicities can look regardless of, let's say, percentages. You can look anyway, regardless of what your makeup is. And that's the truth, guys.
That's the truth, but that's not an issue. That's not an issue here. There were no black Africans in her heritage. They are from Macedonia, northern Greece.
And William LaRoche is saying she looked like Elizabeth Taylor. Who knows? Maybe she did. I have no
Mm.
idea. It's projection. Thank you, Mikey Lito. Definitely that is the case. Um, oh, okay. I typed, "Are you okay?" when you knocked the camera over. Oh yeah, yeah. It's my light. I didn't use the light because sometimes it bothers my eyes, but I have a light, and it's huge.
Oh, shit, that is huge.
And it's you can't see it, but like I can turn it on, and like today I couldn't take the brightness. See, it's
Hmm.
brighter.
Mm.
I couldn't take the brightness today, so I had it there, but the cord goes underneath the computer, and sometimes when I move the computer, the cord pulls it, and it gets knocked down. But yeah, I'm fine. It does that sometimes. It has I don't have it installed properly. So but thank you, Bonzo. Uh, you're making me laugh now, Gary Vander Sandwich Worthington. Is that a hashtag? Who knows? Um, yeah, who knows? Uh, Mikey Lito. And Mikey Lito, it's so nice to have you here today, Mikey
Mm.
Lito. We've missed you. Says, I'm witnessing a 21st century example of projection as my aunt is being projected as a gay icon, despite never being openly gay in public, but rather a civil women's rights icon. It's insidious. Wow, Mikey Lito, I didn't know that.
No, I didn't know that either, Mikey.
Um, I mean, I did watch the documentary, and of course, Mikey is talking about um his aunt, whose name is Pauley Murray, who really was a pioneer in civil rights here in the United States, and wrote many of what I would call precedented documents. And these are documents that would be filed, or sent into the courts, set precedents for a lot of our civil rights arguments by what we would call, the great orators here in the US, guys like Thurgood Marshall, they'll use some of her quotes in documents presented to the courts or however they were filed as part of their reasoning why something needed to be changed in the United States so that everybody could have their civil rights. So she was a pioneer in this, and there's a lot of precedent work that anybody who goes ahead and debates in court um, will use. And she really set the tone for that. Some of her court cases, some of the things she filed, really, really important stuff. Even uh, Ruth Ginsburg used a lot of what Pauli Murray used. So that's the condensed version. But I assure you, Pauli Murray did a lot more than that. I had no idea that that gay icon thing was something that people were holding on to, because honestly, Mikey Lito, I don't ever remember her saying that she was that way either. So I see her as a civil rights and women's rights icon, maybe one of the first in our modern age, Mikey Lito. But that's what they want to hold on to, that other definition. Tom Jr. Jackson says, I saw that some guy is suing Amazon and the Tolkien estate because
Yeah, I saw that.
part of his fan fiction ended up in the Rings of Power. Now, what do you think about that, Russ?
Uh, Spurious at best. It's kind of like kicking something when it's when it's down. Um, I'm sure, unlike the Egyptian archaeologists, I'm sure that if there is any basis in actual fact of this, which I doubt, then he'll accept a fat paycheck from Amazon, which will be pocket, be money down the back of the couch for them. But I did see that, Tom. Yeah.
Yeah, that is a surprise. Now, Nathan says Jada Pinkett Smith has a chip on her shoulder and carries it into the projects that she's in, or when someone says a tame joke. And you know something? I have a feeling that there is a
Was
lot of
she not
kids.
behind the Oscars so white thing? Was that her? Because she couldn't accept the fact that her husband lost, not because of the color of his skin, but actually the performance that year was better. Like, no, as we've said so many times, like Hollywood is famously liberal, famously liberal. It's just he lost out to somebody else in a better movie, but no, she had to make it about race, and now she's making this about race. So I think, Darth Plato, you're quite right. It's just that the woman's got a chip on her shoulder, but I think this whole thing has blown up in her face. I just think that with the Rings of Power now, I just think people have had enough of this sort of nonsense, and this is really, really, really not. And I love ancient history. Like, it's been part of my life, God, since I was a little. I remember going to Hounslow, watching 300 Spartans, and going to Hounslow Library, which is no longer there, and getting all these books about ancient Greeks, and I loved it. And I just find it insulting myself, and also condescending to African Americans as a whole. Now, I can't talk about the African American experience, but I'd be vaguely embarrassed if people that looked like me were just been shoehorned into everything to sort of try to appease some audience that isn't there, trying to make right what once went wrong. We all agree there should be more representation. Nobody can deny that, and nobody can deny that there was, whitewashing going. John Wayne was Genghis Khan and all that kind of stuff. We know all that stuff went on, but that was then, and this is now. So two wrongs in this instance don't make a right, and I just can't imagine, Black America screaming out, yes, we need to see a Cleopatra movie where she looks like us. It's like, no, everybody knows that she didn't look like that, and that's fine. Fine.
Yeah, and you know something? I also do want to say something else, and the thing that I'm going to say is that um, it is important the way characters look. It's huge. And I know that BBC had said that they chose the right actress for the role. I know they said that as an excuse as to why they chose that actress to play Anne Boleyn, I believe. But I'm not buying that, Russ. I don't
No,
buy it. She is probably a very good actress, but I don't
yeah,
think she was the right one for that role. And I think it does matter the way people look. In fact, we know that when Gal Gadot was up for this, or is still up for a Cleopatra film, I was very excited. I thought she'd be great. Now, to be honest with you, Russ, they weren't claiming Cleopatra was one thing or another. I just thought she was a beautiful actress and she could play that role. I don't think they were necessarily saying that this is what her ethnicity is. That is what Gal Gadot is. I don't think they were saying that at all.
Well, there was
But
huge controversy around that as well. That said that some people were coming out trying to claim that she was sub-Saharan African and all that, and then that was like completely slapped down. There is no better actress that's famous at the moment to play Cleopatra than Gal Gadot.
I thought
I
Gal
mean, look,
Gadot would be perfect in
she would be
this.
perfect. All right, she's Israeli, but she looks the part. That's kind of the point.
And
You want
that's
this
fair too.
statuesque, exotic, dusky,
And no one is
beautiful
claiming
woman.
that Cleopatra is Israeli. No one's claiming that.
No, they're
So,
not claiming that. She's an Israeli actress playing a Macedonian person, and that's fine. That's
mhm.
fine.
And here, Darth Plato says Ptolemies created a new language while
Coptic,
in
yeah.
Egypt. Did I say it right?
Coptic, yeah.
Ptolemy created a new language while in Egypt, Coptic, which blended native language with Greek. Now, whenever I think of Coptic, I think of Coptic Christians.
Mhm.
Because I know a few Coptic Christians as well. And that's great. Thank you for that information. Um, but hey, Marco. Hi, Marco. I met Marco. Marco, is this Marco Lani? I met Marco while I was in the UK. It's nice to see you, Marco. I hope you are well. Don't agree with the concept of monarchy. Okay, fair enough. Yeah. And of course, Darth Plato talks about it depends on how you cast it. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I think this is a good point. And of course, like I said, once again, no one's claiming that Cleopatra was Israeli. No one was claiming that. It's just the point of what you're claiming in a documentary that was meant to be historical fact. That's what we're talking about.
Well, yeah, but it's more that they're trying to push this as a fact. It's like, no, no, you people have been lied to by Whitey. It's like, no, we weren't. And no, just stop with this. It's quite racist. In fact, if you actually, I know it's absolutely impossible for people not white to be racist, but this is like quite a racist thing, and that's why the Egyptians are pissed off about it.
Yeah, and I the my mother told me this
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
is not scientifically accurate. It just isn't. So unfortunately, that's not anything you could always go by.
Actually, I've got
Um,
a question because I just saw this comment there from Stavros. So Stavros, you are of Greek descent,
oh
right?
yeah, 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 yeah,
You
yeah.
don't. Do you have an issue with an Israeli playing Cleopatra, not claiming? The film is not going to claim that she's, actually, Cleopatra was Judean. No, she wasn't. She was Macedonian. But are you okay with an actress that isn't Hellenic playing Cleopatra? That would be an interesting thing.
Yeah, this is a good question. Maybe that was why there was so much focus on Gal Gadot, doing it. I just thought she was a beautiful woman, and yeah, if there was another actress who could play it, which I'm sure there is, I don't know whether they would want to fund it. Excuse me, but Chris William LaRochelle says Chris Rock had a great joke. Jada boycotting the Oscars is like me boycotting Rihanna's. Oh my goodness gracious! Undies. I'm not invited. Um, he did make some comments about them before. Byford the Hobbit says, "Hi, Arden and Russ and Tom Jr. Jackson." Well, hello to you, Byford the
Hey, bye.
Hobbit. And here, Stubble says there's nothing to the Ring of Power lawsuit. He claimed they copied his cover art, which features a dragon. It looks like he planned to do this from when the series was announced. Interesting.
Okay, nice one, Stubble. Thanks for clearing that up, mate.
And Stavros says he has no issue with it.
Right.
Um, yeah, she portrays my Amazons quite well.
Hmm.
She really does. But you know something, Russ, I think that Netflix might have to tread a little bit more carefully going forward now.
Well, I wonder if they can it. Will they admit defeat, or will they just apologize and say, you know what, we did this with the best of intention, but since then we've had experts actually look at this with a fine tooth comb, and in fact, you guys are right. It was bollocks, and we're not going to do it because we've been uh, we've been shanghaied here, but we're going to go ahead with the rest of the series, which I'm sure will be great. I'm sure, unless they're going to try and make the Woman King into a hero or whatever. But if they did a show on African queens, of which there were many, um, then I'm sure that'll be a great series. Darth Plato says yes. Some Greek writers claim that Macedonians were not Greek, but they were barbarians. Well, you know, I've, what I really liked, and you may like this film, Darth Plato, or you may not, but I love it. Look, Alexander, the final cut, because the cinematic cut of Alexander isn't great, but the one with Angelina Jolie, that was peak Angelina as well, and Colin Farrell and Top Gun. Come on, Val Kilmer,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, and all of that, and I had them all with Irish accents, and I loved that. It's almost like Greece was or Hellas was England, and Macedonia was Ireland or Scotland, and the dominant culture at the time was Hellenic culture, Greek culture, if you like, and they looked down on these guys, but the guys had a better army than they did, and ultimately defeated them at Chaeronea. But they never stopped looking down on them. They were just dirty bog trotting barbarians as far as they were concerned in Greece, because Athens was quite effete and all of that stuff. So yeah, you're quite right.
Yeah, and Darth Plato, I think you understand what I'm talking about when I was referring to uh Egyptian, let's say ethnically Egyptian Egyptologists. I had to kind of think about how I was going to say this. Ethnically Egyptian Egyptologists and their criticism over the last 20 years from outside Egyptologists who claimed that their research methods were not up to par, but they've changed their ways. These Egyptian Egyptologists have changed their research methods to match what current Egyptologists would be doing. And of course, they did build the new museum in Cairo, which is fantastic, and have their research, which is up to par from what the rest of the, let's say, world's Egyptologists have been doing. So there is that. And now that they're up to snuff, now that they're right at a point of being, pretty much comparable to their peers outside of Egypt. Many of them have already attended universities outside of the University of Cairo anyway. But the point that I'm making is that now that they have everything in order, and you probably will see a lot of these PBS Egyptology programs featuring Egyptian Egyptologists, this comes into play, and it feels like a smack in the face. As far as I'm concerned, they're the ones who should be doing the documentary on perhaps Cleopatra, only because out of location, maybe even, since she's not, has a different ethnicity, doesn't matter. But the point is, it happened on their soil, so to speak. And maybe since it's their history, more or less of their land, they could do that work. But I don't know. Darth Vader, I don't know if you're familiar with what I'm talking about, but right when they're at the top of their game now, this comes out, and it must really feel like a big blow to them because they know their history and they don't need anybody from another country telling them what they already know as the truth. That's how I'm going to put it there. At least that's how I would be looking at it if I were them. Um, so, let's see. Um, and he's, Darth Vader is talking about the classics director as a cabinet maker. So
Yeah,
the government
so
is not.
it's a government issue. So they're not going to be, again, I don't think they're going to be bought off with this. I don't think a couple of $1 million from Netflix is gonna touch sides. They're not interested in money. That they're making an appointment.
Yes, yes. And so there is
Yeah,
that. So let's
I
see how
love a
this
bit of
plays.
Graham Hancock by the way. I do. I think he's the world's luckiest guy. Like I never really, I wanted to believe, but it was all a bit spurious right up until they found Quebec Teke, and it's like, oh fuck me, he's got a point. So, as I don't think you were here. I was saying earlier on, there's more evidence to support his claims of a lost civilization than there is to support any claims of Cleopatra being a black lady.
Good point. Good point, and something to think about. And thank you, Bifer. And one of the last things that I want to say before we go is that and I didn't necessarily mention it, but Jedi Survivor is a new game that's coming out, which is the sequel to Jedi Fallen Order. And they're talking about it. I'm going to be playing the game on my channel this upcoming week when it comes out. I think it's on the 28th. And they say Coruscant is a playable planet in Star Wars Jedi Survivor, but it may not be open world. And they're kind of talking about of the game. Some people were not happy with some of the conclusions of the game, but to be honest with you, Cal Kestis has been such an important character in Star Wars these years. Even though he's not in a movie and he's not in a TV show, he is an important character there. So I did just want to mention that. Russ, before we end today, so guys, do check out my channel. I'm going to be playing Jedi Survivor every day, just the way I've been playing Hogwarts Legacy. I'm going to switch over to Jedi Survivor. And God help me, because you guys know I'm not the best gamer out there. But if you want to see a fun gameplay, I am not an overly achieving gamer, but it still will be fun to hear you all and talk to you guys while I'm doing this. So I hope to see many of you there in the upcoming weeks. So Russ, before you and I check out today, was there anything else that was on your mind that you would like to talk about here on Sunday Brunch?
Fuck yeah. SnyderCon. Come on.
Yes. Now, guys, SnyderCon. SnyderCon is the highly anticipated event. It's all set to take place in California during the final weekend of April 2023, which is this weekend, guys. SnyderCon, and it will showcase three of Snyder's most popular DC films: Man of Steel, Batman versus Superman Dawn of Justice, and an IMAX premiere of Zack Snyder's Justice League. And it is also a special fundraising event for the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. To be honest with you, to see all three films and one in IMAX, it's unbelievable, Russ. April 28th, April 29th, and April 30th. Russ, you said you tried to get tickets for it, and it ended up getting sold out almost immediately. They're saying that this will be the first time that Snyder's original cut of the movie will receive a theatrical showing. And Russ, we already know, you and I know, that the interest in these films has not waned at all. They just released a cyborg figure. This cyborg figure, which is made by Hot Toys, I believe, which is just unbelievable, is like $300. It's completely die cast, and I think it's Hot Toys. To be honest with you, I felt that Cyborg was the most important character. I'm sorry, I know there were other important characters, but I felt that Cyborg was the most important character in the movie. You had said obviously that he is the star of the film, and that's true. But I felt like he was the most important character in the movie for me because of what was at stake. I almost felt like they were just telling his story. Russ, here's the figure. The level of excitement from this figure, Russ, from this figure alone of Cyborg has been phenomenal. People have not stopped talking about it. It just came out. You can see the figure. It's completely die cast. It's a $300 figure. It's a special edition. Here it says, I am not broken, and I'm not alone. Victor Stone, the genius level in a genius level intellect from Jack Snyder's Justice League. Look at this figure, Russ. People cannot stop talking about it. Look at the likeness of Ray Fisher. Ray Fisher, incredible, who made this character come alive, who made this character what it is. An incredible performance by Ray Fisher, which still more needs to be told, Russ. Interest in the Snyderverse is not waning. People are still waiting for figures from a movie that happened years ago, Russ. Russ.
I know, right? Well, this tiny what do they call it? Toxic little fan base that doesn't have any people with it. Well, the tickets to SnyderCon sold out within 3 minutes. I think they're like, I didn't apply, by the way. I didn't say that, but I think they were like 250
I apologize. I thought you did.
or 300. I think that, yeah, I wouldn't have been able to get out to LA, but they were like $200 or $300 a pop, and it sold out within 3 minutes. And the rumor is that they will be showing, when they say the original cut of Zack Snyder's Justice League, they mean the one that didn't have Martian Manhunter in it, but has Green Lantern come in at the end. So that'll be an exclusive. Yes, I too am a hardcore Snyder elitist. Um, there's that. It's also Gal Gadot is appearing there. Ben Affleck is rumored to be appearing there, and Henry Cavill is rumored to be appearing there. Apparently, with some kind of huge announcement to make. Now, I'm sure that'll be Warhammer. I don't. I just, in my fondest dreams, if he says, "Oh well, look, we've agreed with Pam Abdi and DeLuca that we're going to do this on Netflix," and then I just think everyone will be made up. Non-Snyder fans don't have to watch it, and Snyder fans will get the end of the story. That's all that they've ever wanted. Um, but you're right. I think it was Darth Plato or somebody said earlier on. It's the gift that keeps on giving, and there you can't have these things both ways. So, like Shazam: Fury of the Gods tanked at the cinema, as you know, as it did, right? It just didn't make its money back. Apparently, that's the fault of Snyder fans not going out to support these DC movies. Where are all the true DC fans then that are not this toxic minority? Now, either the people that want Cavill and Affleck et al. Are the majority of fans that just don't inhabit the hater space on social media, or they're a toxic minority. Well, which is it? Well, I'm beginning to think that these movies have gained so much traction and a hardcore devoted fan base. But I think that's the majority of DC fans now. Now that's my straw poll, right? I know I could be completely wrong. I'm not talking about general audience. I'm talking about DC movie fans. Yeah, there are lots of people that love to troll Snyder fans because they'll always bite back, and they do. And I've seen it go on. I have seen toxic people, but the amount, and they get shouted down by other Snyder fans. Um, One of the things that I was reading was there seems to be a bit of a civil war at Warner Brothers between Pam Abdi and Mike DeLuca. Mike DeLuca, thank you, that's his name, and James Gunn and Peter Safran. In that Abdi and DeLuca are wedded to Zack Snyder, and they want that to continue. And of course, James Gunn wants just to use his bits of the Snyderverse and irritate absolutely everybody on the Snyderverse fandom by doing that, but also do his own Superman and do his own this, that, and the other. Somebody says, "Yes, Wex, give me fucking Batfleck
Hi,
too."
Spencer.
We might have a bit of a weight on our hands if hashtag restore the Snyderverse, hashtag full circle, and all that stuff is going to come true. And I think do you know what, Nathan? It's the first movie of DC I haven't seen in the cinema. I haven't seen it yet, and that's huge for me. I was so apathetic about it. Um, the smart money, or perhaps the desperate money, says that WB is waiting until 2025, which is not that far away now, 18 months away now, to see how Legacy does. And if Legacy goes down the toilet, then it'd be like, oh, it's that, fucking money, and would you mind? That's what people are sort of saying is the thing. Yeah, no Cavill, no Sal, exactly. DC fan base is right there with you, dude. But I don't think they can dial this James Gunn thing back now. What was interesting though, because like I follow all sorts of sites, not just pro Snyder. I tried to look at. I do honestly try and look at other stuff until I get really angry and throw a brick at it, telling, "Hey, fuck off! You don't know what you're talking about." But I do try to watch neutral stuff and anti stuff. When he released that picture of of him with the script of Superman Legacy, saying, "Oh, it's all done, and now we're entering into pre-production and we're looking at cast." The comments on the neutral sites, not on the pro Snyder ones, are going, "Oh, fuck this guy," and the anti ones are going, "Yeah, it's going to be the greatest thing ever." But did you know things like Screen Rant or Movie Web or Empire, things like that? First of all, there weren't many comments on those sites. And what comments there were a bit, oh well, I'm kind of over superheroes now, and it's a bit late in the day. It's very meh when it comes to Superman Legacy, and that's just my straw poll of the stuff that I've seen on this computer here. I don't know, man. I think it's just the wrong time for this. I think the time is right for a Snyderverse. I've been saying that all along. It was ahead of its time. If Man of Steel came out in 2023 as opposed to 2013, it would be the biggest fucking movie of all time. People are done with Marvel, funny jokes. It's been we had this for 15 years. People are over it, man. We're in the like with the westerns. Have been, it's the often used analogy. People are over it. They want to see something different. And Snyder's take was different. It was wrong for the time, as much as I love it. And we can agree those movies were not very profitable in terms of when compared to the Avengers, although they were profitable enough. I mean, I think BVS made 800 million, Superman, the other one made 600 million. Justice League was a disaster. We know that Zack Snyder Justice League was number one in the DVD charts for like 8 months or something, wasn't it? We looked at that on the one show. So there is a demand, and they could make it right. They really could make it right. But again, as we close our show, I'll go back to what we were saying at the beginning. WB, Disney Star Wars, Disney Marvel just seem to be doubling down on every single shit decision that they have made. James Gunn, you could have united everybody. Yes, complete reboot. We have a new cast, new everything. Okay, I don't like it, but I'll go with it. Or yes, we're going forward with Henry, Ben, and Gal, but we're telling different stories, and it's all gonna work out. Don't worry. Yes, you have me, but no, you've just fucked it all up, and I'm so not excited for this. And I love Superman. I've loved Superman since I was a little boy, like a really really small boy, lower than this. You probably couldn't see me on this camera. Loved him. He's my number one hero, and I'm just like. I feel a bit cheated, but we will see. So Henry Cavill, big announcement at SnyderCon. Please God, it's the news that we all want. Although I very, very much doubt it. But yeah, so as you said, our Snyderverse is still a thing. It's 10 years since its inception, and people are still having flame wars about it on Reddit to this day. And you can't, you know what, you can't even say that about The Last Jedi. Like people are sort of over it. They don't want to see any more of that, and then that's fine. But yeah. So please God, Mikey says here, Snyder's films were completely mishandled by WB. Yes, they did write the book on corporate interference. I saw Superman in the theater too, Darth Plato. I think I was 7 when I saw that. And Irene Jobson.
Hi, Irene.
Oh, hey.
Well, Russ, thank you for joining me today. And thank you, everybody who stopped by. Russ, where can people find you?
At the pub, normally here on a Sunday, or you can email me at contact@russellwhitfield.com, and I've got a website that's 1,000 years out of date, russellwhitfield.com. But more importantly, where can people find you, RM?
Guys, you can always find me here on Positive Fandom. Guys, also just keep in mind, here is Russell's information, his Amazon page. It's in the chat, I think earlier. Tom put it in there for us. Thank you, Tom. So you can check out Russell's fantastic books, his Gladiatrix series here. Make sure you guys check it out. I assure you, you will not be disappointed. They are amazing books, and we will be covering them soon. I also want to thank Norwegian Kryptonian for the super chat that you sent me today. It was so kind of you. Thank you for doing that. It certainly does make a huge difference having that support from you all. Guys, you can always check me out here on Positive Fandom, where I do all the parlay on the fandom. You can always watch my channel, and you're going to see a live stream of a game usually every day. I've been playing Hogwarts Legacy. Coming up, I am going to be playing Jedi Survivor, as I said a little while ago. So that will be on the channel right here on Positive Fandom. I'm also going to start up my reviews with Darth Plato again, our historical reviews on Friday.
You're going to review Cleopatra.
Yeah, yes, yeah, we're going to do it. We're going to do that. We have Oppenheimer coming up.
Uh,
And there's a bunch of stuff. We're in the middle of the Horatio Hornblower series, my personal favorite. We also have done um, a fantastic review of Napoleon and Josephine here on the channel, so you can watch that as well. So please do check that out, as well as Devotion, which I'm going to be restreaming on Robert's channel on the Burnettwork soon. Darth Plato soon. Also, don't forget that on Mondays, you can find Lorena Creole and I on the Burnettwork for our show, Ladies of the PGS, which should be 6 p.m. tomorrow, Eastern Standard Time, where we are going to be talking about everything that's going on there. And tomorrow night, I'm also going to be doing a watch party at 8 p.m. for Chris Gore's Attack of the Doc. I got to see his documentary in December of 2022 at LA Comic Con, where he premiered it there, and it's a fantastic documentary. Anybody who is into geekdom, you will love this documentary. Lorena and I are going to be watching it live on the Burnettwork. So do watch along with us. Also, keep in mind that you can find me on the 1/6 Scale Man Network for Uncivilized Scoundrels or for Say What, as well as on Lorena's channel for our anime shows, which we've been doing for over a year now, but also for our watch parties coming up and our Toxic Male Appreciation show. And of course, you can always find me here on Midnight Musings on PGS Treks, also on PGS Moving Image, and a new show that's coming up on the Burnettwork, which is going to be Cat's Corner, premiering soon, guys. So please do check all that stuff out. Just want to thank everybody for the support.
last
um,
bit, last bit from me, as I've
yeah,
seen something in the I have to. Well, first thing,
yeah.
chat. Rita has popped her strike back. Um, Not watching. I'm going to say something else there, but I'm not going to. I'm not going to use that expression. So we watched the first 3 episodes of Strike Back Project Dawn. Rita, what did you think of Strike Back Project Dawn?
It's the perfect show.
Fucking yes. What has it got every 7 minutes?
It's got nudity. It's got nudity, and it's tastefully placed nudity. It's real life nudity. It's real life. I mean, it's great. I think it's
And if
wonderful.
it's not nudity, 7 minutes later there'll be a fight. That's it.
Yes. Yeah.
Nudity, fight, plot, nudity, plot, fight. Just chef's kiss good. I love fucking Strike Back. Mario, yes, I saw this in the chat. Before I say goodbye, thank you so much for picking up the book. Darth Plato, I tell you, uh, it's not a very good book. I'm afraid. I apologise for that. I'm glad you're enjoying it. I would say that the second two are better. The second one's actually my favourite. I really love the second one. I'm quite proud of it, of the second one. And the third one's pretty good too, but the first one's not so much. But I just wanted to say thank you very much for picking it up. It's really humbling when people do that, and hope you're enjoying it. And if you want to send it to me or whatever, and you want me to sign it, then I'm more than happy to do that, and I'll pop it back to you. And that goes for you as well, Darth Plato, or anybody that's picked them up. Happy to do that if that's what you want, because sometimes it's not copacetic to sign up. So I don't know, but the offer's there. If anybody wants, reach out to Rita or me or Tom, and yeah, I'll get it done. But thanks, man. I really appreciate it.
And hello to Mighty Orbat, some of you guys who joined us a little bit later today. Hello. And hello, Thalia. Says, have a great Sunday, Artem, Russ, Tom, and all the chat too. So great to see all of you today. Thank you so much for everything. Yes, Irene, boobies.
Strike
Um,
back.
which we all love. Guys, thank you for your support. And yes, Sunday Brunch is back. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in today. I so appreciate it. So wonderful to see you all. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, everybody. And always remember, no matter where you are in the galaxy, always remember to please be kind. Take care, everybody.
See you later, guys. Thank you so much, everybody. Really appreciate it. Bye bye now.